Rebecca of Pocketful of Posies. Today's video, I'm so happy to share with you, is my historical Belle costume. I thought, what would Belle wear in the 18th century? And I decided to start out with her blue dress. As you know, if you've watched any of my previous videos, I am planning a whole Belle costume series. So stay tuned for all of that. And I started out with her blue dress. I'm so excited to share this costume with you. I'm going to go through all of the steps I took to make this costume, as well as all of the mistakes I made along the way. So without further ado, let's get to it. Here we go. I used the Amalia Jacket pattern from Scroop Patterns and Virgil's Fine Goods. I'm using View A. I cut and assembled my pattern pieces and got started with my first mock-up. I used the largest size to see where I would need to adjust. I realized I pinned the straps on incorrectly and fixed it. Okay, so we are definitely going to need more room. Seems short in the back, and then the sleeve, I think the sleeve is okay. I mean, of course, I'll have to smooth it out and then pleat it in the back. But, so, first mock-up, definitely need more room. A lot more room. Mock-up number 2. The changes I made to this mock-up are I lengthened it by 1.5 inches on all of the pieces except for the shoulder straps, and then I added 1 inch to the side seams, 1 inch on each side of the side, and then 1 inch where at the front, where the front and the side meet. And did I add 1 inch to the back as well? Yes, but it's a tapered inch, so it starts off without any added at the top and then tapers down. And then I did all of the seams except for where the side and the front meet. I did all of them with quarter inch seam allowance, and where the side and the front meet, I did the 5/8 inch. Why? I couldn't say. I just thought I needed a little bit more at the center front at the top here, and then I needed more down towards the waist. And I think we've got a good fit. I'm gonna pin this and then we'll see. Okay, I've got it pinned now, and I think the fit is pretty good. Okay, on a closer look, I realized I had way too much room in the back, so I took the back seam in a little bit. I just, instead of the 1/4 inch seam allowance, I did 5/8 like the pattern said to. And then I also took in the side back seams to, not at the top, but I kind of tapered down to where I had a 5/8 seam allowance down towards the bottom. And I think that has helped the fit. It's just, of course, pinned, so it's a little uneven, but I think this is gonna work. So now I'm going to trace out a new pattern based on these changes and go from there. I'm excited. I am finding myself full of confusion at the moment. My mock-up has gone well. I'm pretty much done with the mock-up. Then I started looking at the outer fabric because I used the lining pieces for the mock-up, which is what the pattern says to do. And there are no instructions in the pattern for how to size up the outer fabric pieces. So considering I had to add a good amount of inches, I am assuming that the outer fabric pieces are going to be too small if I don't grade them up. But I'm not sure how to do that. Now, one of the pieces, the side front, I added width to each side, and I also lengthened it. And I have already lengthened all of the pieces for the outer fabric as well. But 3 of the pieces have attached skirts. So I could add width here on the sides like I did on the other pieces, but then I think I will need to add skirt width to the skirt pieces as well. At least that is what I am assuming. But that might work. I'm not sure, honestly. I have no idea. I'm assuming that will work, and so I'm wondering now if I should make a mock-up of the outer fabric as well before cutting into my linen. It seems the most prudent option. So maybe I will do that. Maybe I won't cut the full length of the skirt pieces, just part of it, just so I can see how it lays. And I think that's what I'm gonna do. So wish me luck. I made a mock-up of the outside pieces and I just fit it over the lining. Now, I did add some width and all of that stuff to see how it would work. And for some reason, even though I added the same amount that I had added to the lining, the side piece ended up too small. So I have adjusted that pattern piece, and I have added about 1.5 inches on either side. That's about how much excess I had in the lining at that part where that is. So I think that should work. I'm still not sure whether I should add the additional skirt or not, but because it's pleated, I think I will go ahead and add at least the same amount that I add to the sides. I'll add the same amount to the skirts because it's going to be pleated. So here we go. I guess I should apologize for forgetting to turn my fan off in the previous clips. But just realized, oh hey Hercules, you want to come sit with me? Hey, come here. I just realized that I left a piece out of my outer fabric mock-up. The side front piece. Somehow I did not cut it out. So that would explain the huge difference in fit between the lining mock-up and the outer fabric mock-up. So I'm gonna fix that. Hercules is here to lend his support. And there we go. We may not have a video this week at this rate. We'll see. I fixed my outer mock-up mistake and it matched up with the lining mock-up, so I got to work with the real lining fabric. I'm using a white printed cotton. Hercules and I marked the notches. I pinned the lining pieces together and sewed them on the machine. After sewing, I ironed the seam allowances in the directions the instructions said to. My next step was ironing the seam allowance to the inside on the neckline. I sewed along the bottom edge of the center front to help prevent stretching. I basted the neckline to the inside. Then I ironed and basted the seam allowance of the curved bottom edge of the front pieces to the inside. Excitement! Time to cut out the blue linen. I pinned and drew my added width needed. I took a break from the jacket and worked on the petticoat a bit. For the petticoat, I just used 2 full width panels of my blue linen. I pinned it on over the rump to get my hem length correct. These are not the final pleats. Jacket assembly time. I started by pinning the back skirt seam. The instructions suggested a mantua maker seam or a felled seam. I decided to try the mantua maker seam. For this seam, right sides together, you baste the seam in place. And then you trim down the seam allowance on one side, and then you fold the wide seam allowance over the one you trimmed, enclosing the raw edges. And then you sew it with a hemming stitch, catching 3 layers, both outer layer and folded seam layer with each stitch. These are according to the directions, and I am not entirely sure that I did it correctly. Then I pinned and sewed the back seam with a back stitch. Next, I ironed the back seam open. Then I basted the back pleats out of frame. My next step was pinning and sewing the back skirt and side back skirt seams together. I decided to use the machine since this project was taking longer than I anticipated. I trimmed the seam allowance and felled the seams. No more mantua maker seams until I practice it more. I pinned the pleats at the back and side back seams. I did some sewing at work. I pinned the back outer piece to the lining, wrong sides together. Then I basted the back to the lining. Next, I pinned the side back over the back edges, covering the raw edges with the folded seam allowance of the side back piece. I sewed them with a prick stitch. So I did some work on the jacket. Hey, Loki came in to see me. I did some work on the jacket at work because I had some students who didn't come to their lesson because they were on vacation. So I got some work done, and now I'm going to continue on putting the jacket together, mounting it to the lining. Hey now, everyone's in here now. So off we go. Checking the directions, always a good idea. I basted the pleats at the back and side back seams. Then I continued assembly by pinning and sewing the side skirts to the side back skirts. Next, I basted the side back to the lining. I pinned the pleats at the side and side back skirts. Then I pinned and sewed the side over the side back, covering the side back raw edges. The next step was pinning and sewing the front skirts to the side skirts. The instructions next said to turn and hem the first 5 inches of the front skirt edge. Now to arrange and pin the front skirt pleats. Hercules was ready to be done with this project. I basted the front skirt pleats. Next, I pinned the side front piece over the raw edge of the side piece. This piece didn't want to line up correctly. I'm not sure if I cut it out incorrectly or what, but I moved it and refolded the seam allowances to get it to work. Then I sewed the pleats to the lining on the inside, being careful to only catch the back of the pleats. My next step was smoothing the front pieces over the lining and turning the bottom edges under. I sewed the front piece over the raw edge of the side piece with a prick stitch. Then I got some kisses from Loki and Thor. Alright, we are approaching the finish line with this project. I have put all of the panels on, all of the pieces of the outer fabric on, and used a prick stitch. And so the next step, and of course this isn't going to look right on Freya right now because she's not wearing my stays. She's wearing a corset. So I need to put my stays on and try it on myself. But I'm pleased with how it is turning out. And yeah, so I'm going to do the strap lining. Strap, put that on, and yeah, then we're keep on keeping on. Next, I attached the lining straps with the seam allowance to the outside. I took a little break and worked on the petticoat. I pleated the petticoat and pinned linen tape to use as the waistband and ties. Lucius and I sewed the linen tape waistband on. He loves sleeping on my stays. Then I turned the tape over the raw edges of the petticoat waist and whip stitched it down. tea time. I put the petticoat on Freya to check everything. I had used every bit of linen I had, so I knew I needed to have a very narrow hem. I zigzagged the raw edge around the hem so that I can just turn it up once and hem it. All right, we're getting near the finish line. I still have to put my stays on and fit the jacket before doing all the finishing with the and putting the sleeves on and everything. So I need to fit that so I can fit the shoulder straps first. But I've been working on my petticoat. It is halfway, little over halfway hemmed. So I'm going to keep doing that because I can't put my stays on until Chris is here, and he's not here at the moment. So I will, yeah, keep on going. Okay, so I am fitting this jacket here. Now, one thing I am not sure about, the lining is fitted in the front well, but it looks, or it's loose in the back. I'm gonna put the bum roll on and see. I know that's going to change at least where things are sitting, so I'm gonna do that. So I think the shoulders are fitted pretty well. It's just, and I fitted the lining over the stays and everything, so I'm not sure why now it's too big. I'm gonna go look in the mirror and see. I decided not to worry about the looseness in the back. Hindsight, that was a mistake. I whip stitched the neckline to the lining. Hercules lent his support. On to the sleeves. I cut the seam allowance off of the wrist edge of the sleeve lining. I had never made sleeves like this before. You lay the outer fabrics right sides together with the lower piece on top of the upper piece. And then you put the sleeve linings right sides together with the upper on top of the lower. And then you sew all 4 layers together along the back seam line. And then next I did make a mistake. I sewed the outer pieces together along the short inner seam. I should have sewed the lining lower piece in as well. Then I folded and pressed the seam allowance in on the edge of the upper lining piece. I folded that pressed edge over the raw edge, and then I just whip stitched them together. Next, the upper edge of the sleeve and sleeve lining are basted together. The wrist outer fabric is folded over twice to the inside, covering the raw edge of the lining. I basted the sleeves on to check the fit and pleat placement. It was really difficult fitting the sleeves on myself. Finally, I pinned and sewed the outer fabric shoulder straps. And these shoulder straps just sit on top of the lining, covering those raw edges. And I sewed them down with an out of frame prick stitch. Then it was finished. On the whole, I am happy with the result. I do intend to do a few fit fixes. The neckline is a bit too large and the sleeves need to be reset. I will also probably take in the back seam. Even with the fit issues, I really love this costume. It feels like something Belle could have worn, and that makes me happy. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't, and if you'd like to be notified whenever I upload, you can hit that little bell icon. If you'd like to support the channel further, I have a Ko-fi account and that is linked down below. Next week, I will not have a video. I'm taking the week off. It's recital week at work, so I'm a little bit busier than normal. So I won't have a video next week, but the following Friday, I will be starting my next project, and it is an Edwardian project. So please stay tuned for that, and I will see you on our next sewing adventure. Bye!